Welcome back to Self-Care for Healers online masterclass series. I'm privileged to introduce Kerri Hummingbird. Kerri is a soul guide and host of Soul Nectar Show. She's also the #1 international best-selling author of the Second Wave, Transcending the Human Drama, and the award-winning best-selling book, Awakening to Me, One Woman's Journey to Self-Love, which describes the early years of her spiritual awakening. Kerri inspires people to lead their lives wide awake with an authenticity, passion, and purpose that positively impacts others. She catalyzes mind shifts that transform life challenges into gifts of wisdom. Her newest book, called Love is Fierce, Healing the Mother Wound, is already a #1 international bestseller and describes the most direct path to spiritual enlightenment. So Kerri, welcome, and thank you for being a part of this online masterclass series. Would you please tell us about your story and how it relates to your concept of the mother wound?
Absolutely. Well, the reason I teach in latest the mother wound is because this is a direct pathway for personal healing. And as a healer, we can only ever help somebody else to the degree that we have capacity to hold ourselves. So the whole journey of being a healer is to heal. It's the story of the wounded healer. It's to heal ourselves and to go so deep with that care and love and nurturing that we can hold ourselves and then also hold deep, profound space for other people as they're going through their life challenges. Because until we're in that moment of being able to hold ourselves through what our client is going through and then hold them too, until we're in that moment, we can be in a space of trying to prevent the client from going through the pain that they're going through, or somehow rescue that, or deflect it. We could have lots of projections, and all of that's because we might want them to heal so that we're less uncomfortable, like, because it feels better for us if they feel better because it's less uncomfortable for us. So these are the things we need to be aware of as healers. We want to help other people, and the biggest healer I know is a mom. I mean, the mother holds space for the children, right? Even if she doesn't want to, even if she gets into it and she's like, oh man, I didn't know I was signing up for this. Like,
That's her job.
this is a lot more than I thought I was signing up for. So I learned my path. Basically I didn't know I was a healer until midlife. So about 11 years ago. I didn't know that about myself. I had it in my language though, which is really interesting because I'd say things like, well, I'm really tired of lifting up my spouse. Like I'm always having to lift him up and take it on for him. And I'm so tired of that. So it was in my language, but I didn't really have the self-concept or self-identity as a healer. So I just thought, well, I'm just unusual and I have these relationships with people and I don't know why they end up this way, know, where I feel like I'm being dumped on. You know
So,
what I mean?
so as you work on the mother wound yourself, would you say that kind of reveals your authentic self? You kind of dig through the negativity and you're working through issues, and then, wow, I'm a healer. Is that kind
How
of
does
what
that
happened?
work?
Yeah.
No, I mean, it wasn't that way for me at first. I didn't know I was healing the mother wound. I was healing it, but I didn't know I was healing it. So a large part of my life, especially once I had kids, because when I had children, it catalyzed the entire conversation for me of my own inner wounding because here's my kid, I just birthed him. And instead of being extremely joyful that he's there, I'm in this I am joyful that he's there, and I'm in this total depression inside of myself. Like all of this negativity is coming up, all these bad feelings, self-judgment, wanting to escape, like all my shadow patterns, like everything comes to the surface. And I didn't even have the language to talk about it. Like I didn't even have the language of shadow. I didn't know that word at the time. I just knew I was in a depression and I wanted to be joyful with my son and I couldn't be, and there was so much going on for me. So I was in a postpartum group. That was my first entry to, wow, there's so much more going on about me that I don't understand. So I was coping with that. I just coped with it for a while. And of course, psychotherapy, they gave me sessions and then I took some happy pills and that was supposed to be the solution. And I went on along for a while in that track, just trying to make the best of it and exercise and, eat right and get a lot of sleep and maybe that'll solve it. So it didn't. And basically it just kind of devolved from there. in the sense that I wasn't getting the kind of support that I needed, and I wasn't claiming the kind of support that I needed, because really what I needed was a spiritual path. Ultimately, the mother wound, as I know from now, looking back into my life, was that I was needing to remother myself. My call to action inside of my body and my spirit when I had birthed my kids was to learn how to mother myself in such a deep way that I could be completely present with what my kids were going through and my partner without being overwhelmed by the whole situation. So of course I started off in overwhelm because I didn't know any of that. And what would have really supported me was ultimately the reconnection with the divine is what would have supported me, reconnection with my divine essence, with the planet, Mother Earth, with the divine mother, with God, source, creator, spirit, whatever your word is for that, which is bigger than us, would have supported me tremendously at that time of my life. And I actually remember strolling my baby, who was very colicky, by the way, strolling my baby down the sidewalk, and I would always pass in the neighborhood. There was this temple, this Center for Spiritual Enlightenment, and I would stop in front of the gate and I would look and I would have inner argument and debate, and then I wouldn't go in because I knew that my husband at the time didn't believe any of that crap. And if I went in there to spend money on that, it was just a business and you're just giving them money to support their business and they're just selling you a bunch of crap. So I didn't go in because I had all this negativity and resistance against it. But every time I would go on that walk, I would walk by that center and I would at least do this, look around. I could never pass it without look like I should go in there. I really should go in there, I didn't though. So it was, without spirit, without that connection, without source, without love, in essence, if we want to really boil it down to what is it really, without love, in the capital L, love, we are bound to run up against many brick walls in our lives and not have the tools to face that brick wall and soften through it. So essentially, I got down to the bottom of my pit of despair and about 11 years ago, 2000 and what was that? 2011, I think. Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, that's the end of that rope. Got to leave. So I left the marriage. The marriage had not shifted, in the sense of personal growth was not something he was really for himself he was interested in my personal growth. So I could be nicer to him, but not for his. So I was like, okay, I got to leave. And the behavior that I was doing at the time was the behavior of somebody who's in a lot of pain and needs to find some way of feeling loved. And so I was having affairs, so that's what it looked like for me because I didn't feel loved inside myself. I didn't feel loved. I felt criticized in myself. I felt criticized in my partnership. And then, so anybody who paid me any kind of attention that I was worthy of love, I was like all in. So I left that relationship. I left the dynamic. I knew it wasn't a healthy one. And I said, I'm not doing the psychotherapy anymore because it's damaging to my psychology. Like, it sounds like an oxymoron. But the labels and the diagnoses, they didn't serve to help me find a path to healing. They served to help me either feel shaming about myself or act out from a place, well, look, I have this diagnosis, so that gives me a free pass to do whatever I want. But that's not serving, that's victim consciousness. So what ended up happening is I found my path. And as I've walked the steps of the path, ultimately I've realized, it's sort of like you walk the path and then you realize the path you've walked. Does that make sense? Like you're already walking the path.
Yep.
But you don't even know what the path is.
Right.
Until one day you go, oh, this whole thing has been about remothering myself. Okay. That's what this has been. So that's basically where I'm at now. And realizing that the entire conversation of self-healing, ultimately the pinnacle of that conversation and the most inward, deepest place. So, the highest mountain and the deepest space is healing this sense of separation from love, this sense of separation from our creator, the one who loves us. It's that sense that there's something missing. That is the root thing.
That probably everyone has, right?
Everybody has it. Yeah. Because we're raised, humanity has been in a phase of exploring the mind and exploring separation and free will and personal expression, which is all great, really interesting exploration. And it has its shadow side.
Hmm.
It's got its shadows. It's got a shadow of unworthiness and unwanted. So the construct is designed specifically. So just to get down to brass tacks, like what is it actually? So it expresses multidimensionally, i.e., it's really actually this separation from love. But it also represents physically, tangibly, in the mother that you got, the biological mother that everyone got, for some reason, however she was, didn't hit the spot. Like it wasn't exactly what you needed to feel loved, right? So there's always this gap. There's this gap between who your mom is and what she's able to provide, and what your soul is and what your soul needs to feel in order to feel whole. That gap is your soul's curriculum.
Awesome. So it's a lesson. It's a lesson.
It is. It's the embodied pathway to your own awakening through embodying the lack and the gap, and then finding your way through yourself back to wholeness for whatever it was that your soul needed to claim, which isn't your mom's journey. It's not her journey. She's just a catalyst for your journey because of the conditions of her soul's curriculum.
Right, because I picked her. I picked her for that lesson.
You picked her to set up the whole construct, and it starts in vitro. Like it starts in the womb as you're being formed. You're being formed in the exact consciousness which creates the gap that you need for your soul's curriculum. So your body, your physical tissues, your cellular structure, everything is being formed in the gap of what you actually need to work on in your soul's curriculum. So you are a walking classroom for your own soul's curriculum, colliding with other walking classrooms of their soul's curriculum.
Amazing.
And they don't have the same goals.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're in your classroom, she's in her classroom. They're matching. They're opposites, generally speaking, or there's some points of commonality. But in the piece that you really, 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 really need, she doesn't have it in hers.
Wow.
And so it's not her fault. And this is where we can get out of the blame game. And it's not even about forgiveness. Like this conversation is well beyond forgiveness, So there's a journey. So for anybody listening who's like, whoa, that's so profound. My head almost like bust open and I don't know what to do with all that information, but how do I even get there? Because I see it cognitively, but I'm not there. Like I don't feel it. I still feel angry or resentful or it's cool. Wherever you are is where you are. And this is the pathway. So it's like walking this path of accepting total responsibility for the own conditions of your life. It's not a punishment, it's a pathway to enlightenment. So it's like walking and owning that each step reveals itself deeper and deeper, higher and higher, until essentially you come to realize that your mother was a sacred gift.
That's amazing. I've never heard it said that way, and that's profound. Yeah, because it's so easy to point the finger at mom. I'm the result of what my parents did to me or said to me or taught me, and it's so untrue.
It really is, because as a mom, I will just speak from the vulnerable mother's heart. I can't speak for all mothers. Maybe there are some sadistic mothers out there who just their only goal in life is to torture you and punish you. I know from my own heart that was not my goal. I know from my heart, my truest desire was to raise my children so they didn't have to go through the same kind of suffering that I went through, and so they could have happy lives and they could be prosperous and fulfilled and do what their heart's calling them to do and be who they want to be, and and that they do it all without pain. Like that was I really wanted that for them. And that's the wish that will never be fulfilled, because we are in a dimension of earth school, and pain seems to be kind of necessary, for personal growth.
Catalyst. Yeah.
I know that it doesn't have to be like suffering doesn't have to be necessary. Let's say that. But pain itself is a warning sign. pain is a redirection. Pain is a stop sign that says, hey, stop, pause, like time out,
Well, yeah.
like take a gander at what's going on. Like pain is necessary on this journey. Actually, it's actually one of the things that guides us. It's little breadcrumbs, and sometimes painful little sharp breadcrumbs that get in your foot and really lodge in there. But these are things that we have to pay attention to. And without the pain, we wouldn't know. We could wander aimlessly through our entire soul's curriculum and never fulfill it. So the pain is there to like redirect us. And as a mom, our job is not to rescue. Our job is to hold space. And so same thing with clients. Our job is not to rescue the client. And because if we're rescuing our kids or our clients or anybody else we love, automatically we're seeing them as a victim, that they can't help themselves.
Or we're robbing them of their learning experience potentially.
We're robbing them of their dignity as well, because we're saying basically, I'm looking at you right now and I just don't see that you can solve this problem. Let me help you, please. And even though you might think that's not the energy I hold it with, let's be honest. Deep down, there could be a little sneaky little bit of that. So we got to be so honest with ourselves. So the place to look at somebody as a healer, and this has taken me a lot of years to work through, and I've had to look at those shadows within myself and go, oh, sneaky rescuer judge. Oh, there it is. I've had to look at myself and go, okay, this is a divine being of light. I am a divine being of light. There is absolutely nothing wrong here. They think there's something wrong right now. There isn't anything wrong, and I know there's nothing wrong. I know it's perfect just the way it is. And
it's that separation though.
they don't, right?
They don't
So
get, yeah.
this is the path as it be a great, the better healer that I've become, like in my own view, like if I'm assessing my work, my skill and results as a healer and just the way that I feel people receiving it, or I notice the expansion, or I notice beneficial outcomes, has been the more that I can see them as perfect the way they are and perfecting. They're already perfect and they're perfecting. So they're having a moment with their soul's curriculum that is super overwhelming to them in their current framework, because they're about to have a huge opening on the other side of that overwhelm. And I'm here to hold steady, knowing that they're perfect and they're in the perfect place and everything is totally good. And it's an experience. And yeah, it can feel overwhelming from time to time. You're totally in the right spot. I got you. I can hold you in that space so you can hold yourself. That's the whole gig. I'm not healing them. I'm holding space for them to heal themselves.
Yeah. If we charge in there thinking we're going to fix somebody, look at what I can do, and it's very ego based. Yeah, you're setting up the client for a failure, right?
Well, it's all in how, like, that's why I always check in with myself because I have empathy for people. It's not that I don't have empathy for what they're going through. It definitely touches my heart when someone's in a lot of pain. And the way that I'm careful with myself is I just check myself, like, okay, are you having just clear, clean empathy? Or is this more like you're seeing them as a victim of circumstance? Because if I'm seeing them as a victim of circumstance and I'm holding them in the victim of circumstance energy, I'm not helping them lift to claim to higher truth, which is that they're perfect the way they are right now. They're already perfect. And this is an experience they're going through. And some experiences on earth are, they're overwhelming. Let's be honest. I mean, we have senses, we have sight, taste, touch, feeling, emotions, physical reactions. Like some of this stuff can be like, let me out, like, get me out of here, like, so in those moments, it's like to hold the person, because a lot of times through the most tenderest, most provocative, darkest, shadowy moments, there's some deep beauty in there. that if you're clinging to the victim story, you're never going to find it. So if you're holding that it's perfect the way it is and it's all in love and there's a beauty in there, then the potential for that to blossom, that's like unpacking gold right there.
Wow. So if they're owning it, like you said, they're not hanging on to that victim mentality, and that they can transcend.
You can transcend. That's a great word. You transcend the density of it and you claim the higher gift of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, so the most tender relationship we ever have is with the biological mother. Now we could say it's tender in the sense I need to barricade myself because it's so unloving, or it's tender in the sense that, oh my gosh, when my mom is loving me, it's like I melt. So depending on what spectrum you're in, on that mommy spectrum, that wherever you are in that spectrum is really the undertone, like the river flowing underneath all of your relationships. Every single one. Your relationship to money, your relationship to your spouse, your children, your family, your friends, your clients, the relationship with your mother is flowing underneath that whole spectrum. And it's because we were born and bred with our mother's consciousness in our cellular memory in our cells as well, and that set up our soul's curriculum, right? So it's all embedded, it's embodied. So you
Mm-hmm.
can't escape it, even though it's tempting to want to. So it's like you've got to immerse in that. And so that's why going and exploring the relationship with your mother and bringing loving compassion, and it's not even about her externally anymore because she's in your body. So it's not about the woman that's outside of you that lives over here or there and that's housed down the street or in another state or in another country because you moved far away, whatever that is. It's not about her anymore. It is about what you received in your body, and it is about the archetype of mother that you formed inside of you as a primary basis of all relationship, as a model. It's about that. And it's also about, in the bigger picture, your relationship with the divine and your idea of the divine, which is also modeled on this creator that gave you birth and what you witnessed and watched with all of your open, absorbing every single little nuance senses of your mother's behavior and how she did behave, how she did relationship and how she thought about life and how she felt, because you can perceive it all because you're connected with her biologically. So it's that is like such a large part of how you view life and how you interact with life, that one relationship. So the pathway to awakening, that's why I say the most direct pathway to awakening, to be in service with your gifts, is to look at that relationship and heal that relationship and to become really curious about what it taught you about life and about yourself, and to decide with consciousness what parts to keep and what parts to toss.
So the way you treat yourself, the way you treat others, and the way you connect with others, the way you connect with divine is kind of a reflection of your relationship with your mother.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. That's awesome.
It's the doorway.
Hmm.
And you're working on it your whole life. You just may not know that you're working on it. Like I didn't know. I was working on it my whole life, but I had no idea that my mom was that involved in my being. And as a third dimensional person outside of me, she's in or she's out, depending if I choose it. But the way she formed my consciousness without even knowing she was doing it is profound. And the more you can bring love to that conversation and forgiveness inside yourself, you can get beyond forgiveness into gratitude. And that's kind of where I'm at right now with my mom. That is where I'm at, is I'm grateful. I'm really grateful for all of the ways that she set up my soul's curriculum so that I could claim mothering myself in the most profound way that has unlocked for me like a deep connection with the divine and a deep trust and a deep love, that now in the reconciliation of that within myself, my entire energetic toward my biological physical mother has shifted to the point where we are now experiencing a level of intoxication. Like, I gave her a hug the other day, and the intoxication of love that I felt in that embrace was just like more tender, more precious, more beautiful than I've ever had with her. There was no guards up. It was just like full on embrace. And that's the space I feel that if we can do that with our own mothers, every other relationship is open for that kind of deep love.
Wow. So for healers that have difficulty looking within, because I think that's a challenge. I know I struggle with it myself. It's so much easier to look without, like, "Ooh, let me take this class and learn this technique, and it'll make me feel better." Or um, it's so hard to do this. Um, would you recommend that you should start with your relationship with your mother? If you have to go that external route first, would that be the way to start
I
looking?
you, you know, I would recommend a contemplation community. I never think it's valuable to involve another ego in a conversation that's actually your egoic issue,
Hmm,
unless that person has skills to understand from a soul level perspective. Like, if that person can extrapolate things to a higher level of understanding, then sure, bring them in. But if they are not, if they're operating in a little more density in an ego sense, it's not helpful to bring ego to ego. Like, that's not a, so it's helpful to do this kind of contemplation in a contemplative community. So there's a couple of different ways in. Um, One way that I offer is the mother wound, like healing the mother wound circle, which is about exploring your relationship with your mother and the patterns, and then sharing them in group. Because you're right, like, it's hard to see our own eyebrows. Like, I'm trying to see mine right now and I really can't. Like, if they were squiggly, I might be able to see one poking out, but you can't really see it without a mirror, right?
right?
So the group is the mirror. And it's often easier to hear it through someone else's mouth than to hear it through your own scenario. Like, you hear it through theirs and you're like, oh my God, that's exactly what I'm going through with my mom. Holy crap, that's so relevant to me. And then you can get it because they're doing the work for you. So you get it. And then sometimes you're doing the work for others. So I like the group dynamic for this kind of work because we can learn from each other and we see the various reflections. And the group usually attracts itself together. So the group attracts itself in the sense that probably most of the people in the group would have like a pattern around abandonment, for example, right? And then, or would have a pattern around unavailability, So the group attracts itself to explore that pattern. I love group scenarios for that.
So when you're working on yourself, you're helping other people, and as you're helping other people, you're healing yourself. And where it's a group, it's just the energy and the accomplishments are just exponential.
Yes, and the only thing there's lots of spiritual groups that do this. Um, I would go for a spiritual processing group that is non-intrusive, meaning that the paradigm of the group is that you share your story, and if there's a reflection, it's simply an empathetic response. It's not a let me fix that for you and I'll tell you like these programs that I did that will solve exactly that problem that you have.
Mm,
That's so intrusive.
mm.
So it's more like, oh, I really witnessed what you said and I can so relate to this piece or that piece, or I felt your heart when you shared that and that really spoke to me. So like that kind of space is helpful, and I've just made that kind of space with an overt label of let's go, let's just overtly go down and talk about the mother wound, right? Like, but there's other spaces where they're doing essentially the same work. They're just not calling it out that way, and just have a group space to reflect these shadow patterns to each other. So shadow work is another word that I would use to talk about this work. So you could look for a shadow work group that's non-intrusive. Like I said, that's just empathetic. You could also look for, a spiritual inquiry group that's helping you. Another community I like is the Gene Keys. I really am into the Gene Keys just because they overtly spell out your soul's curriculum. You get a chart based on your birth date and time and location, and it's like it brings in the I Ching, it brings in all these ancient systems, and I love Richard Rudd because his contemplations are really spot on about these different shadows and these gifts and what you can claim in the ultimate expression, which is called the Siddhi, Siddhi. So just it's a profound system. So there's pathways in, right, to explore shadow. Pick a pathway and stick with it. You know, these shadows are your birth incarnation gap.
Excellent. Uh, excellent advice. Um, so how can we learn more about your circle?
So my circle is information's available at my website, kerrihummingbird.com, Kerri, hummingbird.com. Under events, there's a link for the Sacred Circle. I call it the Sacred Circle, or the Sacred Circle for Healing the Mother Wound. And if you want to know more information about the Mother Wound series, I did a series called The Return of Mother Wisdom. I interviewed 17 experts that we had just various conversations all around like the divine feminine rising and the archetypes of mother and how, you know, we need to accept our bodies more. I mean, just so much like across the spectrum, honoring the earth, you know, how is the mother wound about honoring the earth? All of that is available at motherwoundbook.com. So that's motherwoundbook.com. Um, so, and there's another author that's working on that, another teacher that's working on the mother wound work too. That's a little more, seems to me she's a little more pragmatic, like she's a little more logical, is what I've assessed from her. I know I'm way out there spiritually. So some people would resonate with her maybe better than me as somebody to do the work with. And her website is motherwound.com. I think is motherwound.com, and mine is motherwound book. So if you want to go spiritual woo woo and you want to process it that way, I'm the person. And if you like more logical, then she's probably better because she's got a little more psychotherapy angle on everything. But it's all the same stuff. So whatever tunnel you want to go down.
Yeah, choices are good. Choices are
Hmm.
good. Do you have a remothering technique or um, uh, meditation that you'd like to share?
Yeah, sure. We can do a quick one.
Yeah, sounds great.
Awesome. So the skill I want to teach, just as a really good skill, and then we'll go deeper in, is hand over heart and hand over belly. So the hand over the heart is comforting and nurturing for the heart chakra, and the hand just underneath the belly button is comforting of that birth space, that belly, that umbilical cord, the womb space for the women, and the umbilical cord, the connection to our mother. And these are actually also connecting the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems when you place your hand over your heart and your hand over your belly. It completes the circuit with the electrical circuits of your arms, your meridians of your arms and your hands. And then the breath, we'll bring in the breath and we'll take a deep breath in the belly, letting the belly expand and release. Take another deep breath. And release. One more deep breath. And release. And now just imagine that as you're holding yourself, you're actually holding yourself as a baby to your front side, you at 1, maybe 2 years old. And you're allowing that little one to just be held close to your heart. And you're cupping under their bum with your other hand at your belly. And you're just allowing your heartbeat to calibrate with the heartbeat of your child self. So just taking another deep breath and calibrating your heart with your child's heart. And release. Taking another deep breath and calibrating with your little one. And release. One more time. Really feeling that child self melt. Melting into your heart, melting, relaxing, letting go. And now imagine that your higher self, or the Divine Mother, if you wish, is holding you from behind and wrapping arms around both of you. And imagine that you can lean back and let go even as you hold your little one. You can just take a deep breath into your belly and relax. And let go. And take a deep breath. And breathe out and let go. Letting the tension go. Take one more deep cleansing breath. And let go. And as you hold your little one and are held by your higher self or the Divine Mother, feel the truth of these words come into your heart. Life is incredibly fair. Take a deep breath. I can trust that life is bringing me exactly what I need to grow. Take a deep breath. And allow yourself to trust for a tiny moment that life is fair and that life is for you, by you, and through you, the energy of the divine. Take one more last deep breath. And release all objections and tension. Awesome. You can come back into the space.
Wow, that was amazing.
Yeah, it's really important to embrace that life is fair, because otherwise we're fighting the entire universe, and that takes a lot of effort.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. So, is there any other topic or concept of the mother wound that you'd like to discuss?
I think basically it just encouraged people to take the journey, and to take it in bite-sized chunks, because it is a big elephant. So you don't want to try to eat the elephant in one bite. You know, you might end up on the floor. So just like little tiny bites of the elephant. Today we got a bite that life is fair. That's a bite. Let that percolate, let that process, let that unpack, let that expand, become curious about it. And, this journey of the divine feminine is best explored in the unfolding with gentleness and grace. And it's a really different energetic than we've experienced up until now with the predominant energy within all of us of the masculine energy. I actually have the gene key of force that moves from force along the path of strength to majesty, where majesty is, it's just the unfolding, it's just majesty, it's all that is. And force being, oh, I've got to make it what I want it to be because it's not where I want it to be and I need to change things. And strength being in that middle position. So I feel like we are culturally, humanity, species wise, in the conversation, the leap of conversation, the leap of consciousness between force and majesty. So just, give yourself some grace to make the transition and to start to learn to trust that life is for you all the time. Doesn't err, doesn't make mistakes. If it's in front of your face, it needs to be. And the more we can accept that, the easier life gets.
Very powerful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Kerri, yeah, thank you so much for being a part of this masterclass series, and thank you so much for the meditation, your pearls of wisdom. If we have any other questions, what's the best way to contact you?
Yes, my website, there's a cool little gadget that lets you book a session. You can book a little connection call for 15 minutes, or if you're really serious and you want to go deep and be like, yeah, I'm committed, I want to walk this path. How do we do it? There's a discovery call that you can book from the website too, and those are both complimentary. It's kerrihummingbird.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, everybody out there.
Take care.